Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Thursday. It's January 5th. It is 2023. First NFL podcast of 2023. We have the Week 18 NFL podcast. Last regular season one. I think we're going to do the first couple weeks of the playoffs anyway. Basketball slates are like 3 or 4 games those days, so we might cover both basketball and football on those days. To be determined, but probably not the last time we talk football this year, for what it's worth. So, joined today by my buddy Keith Eys819. Keith, what's happening, my friend?
Yeah, man, this is final regular season week is always a fun one. Definitely have to pay attention to the news here. We've got all kinds of teams with different motivations that obviously factors into who we want to target to score some fantasy points this week. So it's always an extremely interesting week. If you're willing to dig in and do the work and figure out each team's situation, I think there's a huge edge in this week, more so than most weeks. So it's always a good one to play. I can't say that I quite feel comfortable with it yet, but I'm ready to take a first look and figure out exactly how we're attacking this one for sure.
First look is the key word here. I mean,
things are going to change.
We talk about it in basketball a lot, but I mean, there's so much news that's just going to come out in general. Like, I just want everyone to know. I just want to get this out there. I am, deeply thinking every single hour of every single day about Damar Hamlin. We're going to continue to talk football. We're going to break down these games like this week is going to happen. Who knows what the NFL is going to do, but it sounds like everyone's going to play. I think everyone wants Hamlin to be okay. Everyone wants Damar Hamlin to be okay. And I think that you could talk football and still have the respect and, know that you're praying and thinking about him and his family. So just want to get that out there before, because the first game we're going to talk about is Buffalo, and we're going to talk very little about that game, and then we're going to kind of move on. But yeah, I mean, it's a terrible situation. It really is. And very, very much thinking of him and his family. So just want to get that out there. We're going to talk 13 games, week 18, so much to talk about. This slate's so much fun. The last week of the NFL season is so much fun. It's just so much fun because you got teams not playing for anything. You got teams not playing anything and trying out, young quarterbacks, rookie players. You have teams that don't have anything to play for. Their starters might play a half. So there's so much edge in betting, fantasy, everything this week. So we're going to give you a first look like we normally do, but a lot could potentially change from the time we record the podcast till, Sunday, Saturday. I mean, there's a 2-game slate on Saturday with massive prize pools. So a lot can change. The games on Saturday are fantastic. They both have meaning. They both, have something going on. So, my favorite game of the weekend is Sunday night. I'm so disappointed that the NFL put that game on Sunday night.
They really botched that one, didn't they?
Yeah,
because man, Detroit, Green Bay playing for who gets into the playoffs would have been so much fun.
I know they need a Sunday night football game, and I know that game, it should probably be the game that they put on Sunday night. But the flip side of that is if that game's played at the same time as the Seattle game, it just has so much more excitement on both sides. The flip side is Detroit, Green Bay rivalries. Detroit's not going to want Green Bay to make the playoffs, and if they have a chance to keep them out anyway, it's just the excitement for that game. It was so much higher if it's the same time as Seattle. There's just so many potential scenarios, but I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what game you put on Sunday night. Do you put the Dolphins game on Sunday night? Because if they win, they're in, right? I think that's how it works. New England might have to lose. I think New England has to lose now that I think about it. But
yeah, New England controls their destiny for sure.
Yeah, New England controls their destiny. So, yeah, I don't know what game you put. At the end of the day, I don't know what game. But I hate that it's that game. Selfishly hate that it's that game. Because it's the best game of the weekend. So, listen, Seattle fans, I'm sorry, but I'm kind of hoping Seattle loses and we get Sunday Night Football, Detroit, Green Bay, winner gets in the playoffs. it's just a cool scenario. So, but listen, if you're a Seattle fan, you're like, let's win, and then come on, Detroit. So anyway, all right. Week 18, 13 games. FanDuel's including the Sunday Night Football game, so we might, depending on how much time we take, just kind of talk about that game as well. So it might be 14 games. I love that FanDuel's including that game. I think that game is, when you're looking at a bunch of games with totals under 44, and that game is just so juicy, you're like, gosh, I wish that game was on the main slate, and it is on FanDuel. So yeah, anyway, here we go. We get started. New England at Buffalo. This game has a 42.5 total. Buffalo is a 7-point favorite. We'll go New England first, and we'll talk about Buffalo. I mean, the game last week being up in limbo kind of changes this whole game, because if the Chiefs win, Saturday, and the Bills and Cincinnati game does not resume, which, I mean, we all think it's not going to resume, right? I just don't see, if they're not going to push the playoffs back, which they're not. The Super Bowl, NASCAR comes back. Fox has a huge deal with the Daytona 500 and everything. They can't really push the playoffs back. So I think we're all going to just see maybe a tie scenario for that Cincinnati game, which means like the Bills, they need the 2 wins. So if the Chiefs win Saturday, the Bills have nothing to play for on Sunday. So New England, they're in a must-win situation. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to potentially look at New England in this game. I mean, Buffalo, they really don't have anything to play for. They get the tiebreaker over Cincinnati now if that game becomes a tie. So I don't know what we're thinking here with Buffalo, but I mean, New England we're going to start with New England. Tough defense, Buffalo, must-win game for New England. Impossible to know what we're going to be looking at. I mean, Buffalo did not practice Wednesday, which we knew that was going to kind of happen. What are your thoughts here on New England?
Yeah, I mean, it's a win and in scenario for New England. So they're coming to play in this game. They're not a fun team. Now that they're getting healthier, it's a difficult team to break down. We were playing a ton of Ramondre Stevenson while Damian Harris was out. Damian Harris came back last week and handled a large share of the running back work. He got 9 carries. Sorry. He cut into Stevenson's share so much. Stevenson's price is so inflated because Harris missed that time. I think you want to target the New England running game, but we're back to this split backfield here in New England. Harris being $1,400 cheaper than Stevenson. I don't hate shots on him. I don't know if I can pay this price for Ramondre Stevenson when he's giving up such a large share of the work that he's had over the past few weeks. I think you can still take shots on the passing game as well. I'm not sure how successful they'll be able to be in the passing game. I think they have a better chance of doing it on the ground. That's what they prefer to do anyway. Jacoby Myers is 5,100. I think he's in play as kind of the wide receiver 1 here. Devontae Parker with a chance to come back. He's only 3,700. We saw him play fairly well. So I don't think you can just write this New England team off. It's very difficult to figure out. Hunter Henry at 3,300, another name I want to throw out there. New England is playing for something here. They need to score points against Buffalo. I'm with you, and I don't know exactly how to handle Buffalo. It can go two different ways. They could be extremely motivated with that entire situation, or they could just come out here and be like, it's not going to improve our seeding. We're going to take another week off and just kind of gather ourselves. So the other side of this game is very difficult to figure out. I know New England is playing for something. You probably want some exposure here, but it's a difficult situation for sure, especially with some of the guys they have returning from injury.
Yeah, I mean, this is a scenario that if Buffalo plays their guys in this game, New England's a team that I'm probably very, very underweight for a team that has to win and get in. So yeah, I mean, like you said though, Kansas City wins Saturday. They're playing Vegas. Kansas City should win Saturday. They already came out and said they're going to play their starters. So, they win, they get a week off. So, I mean, you're kind of expecting Kansas City to win. And if that happens, does Buffalo, who have absolutely nothing to play for, heavy hearts still. Going to be a short week if they do return to practice at all this week, and just do they risk it? And I mean, I don't think they do. So in that scenario, I think Myers is my favorite. I don't think I get to Mac Jones just because I think there's a lot of value at quarterback this week. So Mac Jones has, I think, one game over 20 fantasy points this season. 5K. I still kind of want that 4X at quarterback. So I like Myers. Myers, 22% target share. He's the guy. I can get all of Mac Jones' production through Myers. If Parker comes back, I don't think you take shots on Bourne or Thornton. Isn't that who like had a random weird game this past weekend?
Yep.
So against Miami, but I think it's Myers. If everyone plays for Buffalo, underweight on New England in general, but I still think it's Myers. Like, I think Myers is the guy that I'm playing from New England, if anything. I mean, the Buffalo side of this game, I'm all for just skipping it until we find out more information. It's impossible to break down. If they play all their starters, do they play the fourth quarter or the second half because they potentially don't have anything to play for? I think Buffalo is only interesting if Kansas City loses or the NFL comes out and says like the Kansas or the Cincinnati Buffalo game is going to resume on Thursday next week and the playoffs are going to get pushed to Tuesday. That game's going to get something along those lines. I don't see that happening, but we'll see. Buffalo is just impossible to break down going into this game right now on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, I just want to touch on, like, there's no way they force Buffalo to play that Cincinnati game. That would put them playing like 3 games in 2 weeks, and one of those is a playoff game. Like, that's just an unfair disadvantage to a team that has already been through so much. There's no way the NFL can do that.
I think it goes to a tie or something. They give a team like both teams a tie, and Buffalo has nothing to play for if Kansas City wins. I mean, I feel like that's the decision that's going to happen.
Yes, I'm on board with that.
Because it's not fair to Cincinnati too. They're a playoff team too. Like, we have to think about that. Like, they are potentially playing like
right, and the 2 and 3 seed don't really matter. Like, the home field advantage, if they make it that far, is important, but it's not like we're talking about a first round bye here. Like, Kansas City would have the first round bye locked up with the win. Like, it doesn't make any sense to figure out who the 2 and the 3 seed are playing that game, forcing them to play 2 games or 3 games in 2 weeks is just It's an under disadvantage.
And Richie says, call it a no contest. I don't think they can do that. I think they have to give each team a tie because of how a no contest would potentially put the Ravens in line to have a chance to win, I think, right? Like the Ravens would have a chance to pass the Bengals, I think, in that scenario, if it's a no contest. But anyway, I could be wrong, but I thought that's what I was reading earlier today.
The Ravens definitely still have a chance to win the AFC North. So that is,
and like, yeah, that's what I meant. They still have a chance to win the NFC North. So, it's just a scenario where it's just tough.
But I think they need the Bengals to lose twice.
They would need the Bengals to lose twice, yeah.
So if it's a tie or a no contest, that's still not a loss per se.
If that game goes to a tie, then the Bengals don't have anything to play for this weekend either. So I think the NFL is going to decide. I think it will come out Thursday or Friday what's going to happen with that game. I think, they have to make a decision. I know it's a tough decision. It's a terrible situation, but we'll definitely, like, throughout the week touch on this Buffalo situation more. Like, I usually start working on an expert survey on like Thursday night, Friday morning. I'm definitely gonna be working on it like Friday night because there's just so much news you have to wait for this week. So, but we're gonna move on. We got the Jets at Miami taking on the Dolphins. 38.5 total in this game. Jets a 1-point favorite. Miami needs to win. The Jets got eliminated last week. They have nothing to play for outside of they're playing their rival, and they don't want them to make the playoffs. So I think that this is a great opportunity for Mike White and this young Jets team to kind of get one more game under their belt. So let's talk Jets. I mean, Miami's been really tough against the run this season, but they've really struggled against the pass. Garrett Wilson has been someone who the last couple weeks I've been off of. He had a really tough matchup against Seattle. I just didn't really get on that Jacksonville game. But I think this is a perfect opportunity for Garrett Wilson to end the season like a big note. He's over 1,000 yards. I think this is a great opportunity for us to go back to the well on Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I like that call. Mike White struggled a little bit last week, but he's a guy that they're clearly comfortable letting throw the ball all over the place. He threw 46 times again last week. 3 of his 4 starts, he's been at 44 pass attempts or more. So I think the passing game is where you want to target this Jets team. Obviously very banged up in the running backs room with Breece Hall going down. It's a little bit of a split there with Zonovan Knight and Michael Carter as well. Don't hate shots on either of those guys, but really the passing game, I think, is where we're targeting this Jets team. Love the Garrett Wilson call. 11 targets last week. He only caught 3 of them for 18 yards, which is just wild. He has a chance to have a monster game here. He's going to see the targets. I think they're going to have more success against Miami defense than they did against the Seattle defense last weekend. So agree. Garrett Wilson is where I'm targeting first. I like Tyler Conklin as well at 3,600. We saw 6 targets for him last week. Every time Mike White has been at the helm, Conklin has received a decent workload. And then another guy that I took some shots on last week that didn't get there at all is Elijah Moore. But I feel like he also got a boost when Mike White was behind center. So I don't hate him at 3,400 as a punt wide receiver option.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely way more interested in the passing game for the Jets here. Knight looked great, and he was doing really well. But I mean, it's a crowded situation right now, and Miami's like a funnel defense. They want you to throw the ball on them. So, I mean, for me, attacking the passing game, I don't think I take shots on Mike White. I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world, but I think going back to the conversation of like Mac Jones, I think I would play Mike White before I'd play Mac Jones in this game. So Wilson, Conklin would be my 2 favorites here from the Jets passing attack. Miami side, gosh, my Dolphins listen, I'm really glad they're not even like talking about Tua playing in this game. I don't think he should play again this season. I mean, as a fan, you want to see Tua out there because he's your best chance to win. But as a fan of the game, 2 tough concussions this year for him, potentially 3. So I think he needs to sit out. Bridgewater, broke his finger last week or something. I don't even know. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be Skylar Thompson starting this week, which is not our best chance to win, which brings the Jets defense into play. The thing is, right, at the end of the day, Miami has so much speed. Tyreek Hill and Waddle, they're just so incredibly fast that they could break open big plays. These guys are going to get the ball. I mean, Mozart and Wilson kind of just share the workload. Like we saw Wilson get a ton of work last week compared to like Mozart. And then Mozart got the passing work. So, I mean, if I were going to play one of those guys, it'd be Mozart. But I mean, I take some shots here on Hill just because he's going to be extremely low owned. No one's going to play Hill because of Thompson. And I mean, the Dolphins have to win this game.
Yeah. Teddy has a broken or dislocated pinky finger. And I saw reports that he could not even physically throw a football because he couldn't grip it with the dislocated pinky.
Yeah, he's not going to play.
I mean, he's got a couple of days to try to heal up. And they did say that he showed enough progress today to be able to still to have a chance to play, but it's still looking pretty unlikely. I told you last week I thought your Dolphins had a chance with Teddy against New England. If they have to go to Skylar Thompson, it's going to be a tough spot against this really good Jets defense. I think the running game is where you have to look. Like Skylar Thompson is just not quite there as an NFL quarterback yet. Yes, they have immense talent at the wide receiver position. I just like this Jets secondary is really good also. I don't know if I can pay 8,600 for Tyreek Hill. I get it. He's low owned. He can break anything off. Like they could literally throw him a screen pass behind the line of scrimmage that he takes 80 yards for a touchdown. So he is in play. Not sure how much I'm getting there. Really tough spot for Miami here. Unfortunate situation because they were one of the most fun teams to watch all season long. But unfortunately, some injuries hit them here at the end that are really going to impact their chances.
They had plenty of opportunities the last few weeks to win games and not to be in this scenario. They could easily just be sitting Hill and Waddle and Tua this week and, not even worrying about things. But, I mean, that's football. You got to win the games you're supposed to win. I will say, so Tua was out the first time against the Jets earlier this season, and Bridgewater got a concussion super early in that game. I think it was the first quarter even. I think he only had 1 or 2 pass attempts. That's the game that Skylar Thompson came in. He threw the ball 33 times, 166 yards in that game, 58 passer rating. I mean, you're just not expecting much. Tyreek had 7 catches on 7 targets for 48 yards, I think. So, I mean, you're not expecting much. The thing you're thinking here is just you're getting 4 full quarters out of your Dolphins, guys, because this game is a must-win game. And you're just playing the talent that they're going to get the ball. The guys are going to get the ball. So you're just playing the talent and hoping they get a couple big plays. But overall, I don't love this spot. I don't love this game. I mean, it has a 38.5 total. That's not saying much because there's a lot of low total games this week. But, I mean, if Tua was playing in this game, it's a whole different conversation. Completely different conversation. So, Minnesota at Chicago, 43.5 total in this game. Minnesota is a 7.5 point favorites. I mean, Minnesota potentially could move into the 2 seed if San Francisco lost. So, I mean, it's one of those scenarios San Francisco is playing at 4 o'clock. This game's at 1 o'clock. We'll talk about that when we get to the 49ers. But, I mean, they can't drop. They're the 3 seed or the 2 seed. What are your thoughts here on Minnesota?
My thoughts are I hope people play Minnesota because they're going to destroy the Nathan Peterman-led Chicago Bears. And there's a very small chance that San Francisco loses to Arizona. Arizona is really banged up as well. San Francisco, I don't even think has to play. We'll get to that game when we get to it, but they could rest some people and still still be huge favorites against Arizona. The question is, can Kirk Cousins or Justin Jefferson do enough in a half of football to matter on this, in my opinion? I think that Minnesota is going to score plenty of points. I just don't know how long the starters are going to be out there. Chicago is not putting up a fight in this spot. Justin Fields has been ruled out already. There's no way that Chicago can hang with the Minnesota Vikings. And I think Minnesota is extremely overrated. So that's saying a lot. It's just the quarterback change is a huge deal for Chicago. I think Alexander Mattison might be my favorite play in this game. Dalvin Cook is great if he's going to play 4 quarters, but I don't know that he's going to. I think Minnesota gets a very comfortable lead, and they begin to rest guys like Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and TJ Hawkinson. So I'm very cautious on how much I'm playing Minnesota here. It's not because I don't think they're going to be able to have success. It's because I think they're not going to play the full game. The quote from the coach was, "We're playing our guys," but that's not necessarily going to be true if they're up 3 scores. And I just don't see any way that Nathan Peterman is going to be able to move the ball on this team, even though it's a terrible pass defense. Nathan Peterman's a terrible quarterback. So Vikings defense at 900. I'm interested in both running backs, but I just don't know that Dalvin Cook is playing enough to pay off a 7,300 price tag. So Alexander Mattison at 5,100 is in play for me.
This is a whole different conversation if Minnesota beats Green Bay last week, because there's so much for Minnesota to play for in that scenario. So, you said it. They said they're going to play their guys. I think Jefferson is, what is it, like 194 away from the record. I mean, I'm going to build teams with Cousins and Jefferson because of the record, because they played absolutely terrible last week, and this is a great spot for them to get back on track. It's a game where we go out. Jefferson catches 2 touchdowns in the first half. We get maybe a little bit of the third quarter because Chicago can't keep up, and he still gets like 30 fantasy points. So I'm going to play those scenario lineups, but overall, I agree with you 100%. Vikings have nothing to play for. San Francisco is not losing to Arizona. We'll talk about San Francisco when we get there. I mean, they have to play their guys if Minnesota wins this game, which becomes even more interesting in that scenario. But, I mean, if Minnesota were to lose this game, if they were just to punt this game, then, I mean, there's no way I'm playing Christian McCaffrey in that scenario. So, for what it's worth. But, I mean, it's me. But, yeah, I mean, Jefferson is close enough to the record. Like, he's close enough. It would have been a lot better if he had like an 80-yard game last week and we're just like, oh, man.
Yeah,
we know we're getting like 130 yards.
Yeah. I mean, then we'd be talking about slamming Jefferson in here. If he needed 130 yards to break the all-time record, absolutely, we'd be slamming Jefferson here. But 196 is like, I don't know that he can do it in 3 quarters. I mean, against this Bears defense, anything is possible. But he would just have to go nuts for a half. And I suppose he could. I don't hate the hedge build, having a couple of teams just in case they let him go for it. But I don't think it's very likely they let him go for it.
I mean, this is a guy that they have no problem getting 15, 16 targets to a game. So he's had, 2 games? Like 3 games over 180 and 2 games over 190 this season. So, I mean, like, the possibility is there. He had 154 against Chicago earlier this season on 12 catches. Like, this defense is terrible. He could really like rack up like 150 yards in the first half of this game. And then, if you're the coach and you're like, listen, I don't want him to get hurt, but I also know that like this is a huge deal. This is a huge deal. So if you're playing Jefferson, you really hope he comes out and just has a huge first half where they're like, hey, let's get these guys a little bit more run in the third quarter. But, I mean, the flip side is if Chicago can keep this game somewhat close, because Minnesota has just been so bad defensively. I mean, that's what's going to cost them. This offense is fantastic, but the defense is just terrible. That's what's going to cost them in the playoffs. But, I mean, if Chicago can keep this game close. I like this spot a lot more if Fields was playing, and he's close to the NFL record for rushing too. And it's like I think if it wasn't like a hip thing, I think he would have been playing as well to try to. We could have been talking about like
Minnesota is bad enough. We might actually beat them if Fields is playing like that. Yeah. I don't think Fields. It's a fake injury. Fields. I know he's like 65 yards away from the all-time quarterback rushing record. And I'm a little bit surprised they didn't let him go for that, but they have a legitimate chance. The Texans play the Colts this week, and I mean, both of those teams are terrible. If the Texans lose, the Bears get the first overall pick. I legitimately think it's a scenario where they're like, we don't want to take any chances of accidentally winning this game because Minnesota is not that great.
Yeah, I mean, if that was the case, though, don't you let Fields go out and run the ball like the first half? And get the record and then bring in. I really think like the hip has been a thing the last like month and a half. And I mean, the direction of the Bears seems like Justin Fields is the answer for right now. So why get him hurt? I feel like that's kind of where they're at. But let's go to the Chicago side of this game. And we got Nathan Peterman. I don't think it's crazy to play some of the passing game here just because Minnesota is so bad against the pass. It's just trying to figure out who you take shots on. Like, who do you take shots on? Like, St. Brown, Pettis, and Claypool are all extremely cheap. I lean towards like Cole Kmet at 46. We don't have Travis Kelce on the slate. We're both in agreement that like Hawkinson might not see the fourth quarter, maybe even the third quarter. Kittle might not need to play a ton in that game. So like top tight end wise is kind of shaky. So maybe I get some Cole Kmet this week. I'm not playing Peterman. I will take some shots on the passing game here. Also, I don't know how much I even love Montgomery in this spot. I mean, you nailed it last week on the podcast. You said that, we're going to see more Herbert, and it was enough where like Montgomery didn't just do anything against one of the worst run defenses in the league.
Yeah, I cannot go to this Bears offense here. Nathan Peterman we've seen enough chances for Nathan Peterman where we know he's not a good NFL quarterback. He should not be starting an NFL game at this point.
Like you said, they want to lose, so why not?
Yeah, exactly. Kmet, the price is too tough for me. I mean, he got the touchdown last week, but there's just no way I'm playing any Bears here. Like St. Brown at 3,400, he did just sign on for next year. So I think he's the one wide receiver maybe I would take a shot on. I don't think they're going to risk Claypool in this spot. They might want to reevaluate St. Brown a little bit more. 3,400, fine with that if you absolutely wanted to run back on your Jefferson stuff. But I don't love the price on Kmet. So yeah, I mean, I'm not playing much of this at all.
It might be one of those scenarios. Take some shots on the Minnesota defense. And like the Madison call, maybe sure. Like Madison, Minnesota defense is in play this week. Peterman 2018 was his last like full game, and he threw 49 attempts for 188.9 passing yards. He yards per attempt were 3.9.
Yeah, there you go.
Yards per attempt 3.9. He threw 3 picks in that game. He did have a rushing touchdown, which at 4,800, if he could rush a touchdown, it'd be huge. But I don't think you can kind of bet on that. I just think like you're gonna potentially see either Herbert or Kmet getting a ton of little short end targets and maybe being a difference maker. But like you said, Kmet's price is kind of tough. So maybe in that scenario, you take shots on like a Pettis or St. Brown and just they're really cheap. It's week 18. You never know, like kind of thing. But we spent way too much time on the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields is in this game. It's a completely different situation. Baltimore at Cincinnati, 41.5 total. Cincinnati's a 7-point favorite. This game matters. Depending on what the NFL does with the Cincinnati-Buffalo game, this game matters because Baltimore could potentially pass Cincinnati if they win this game, depending on what the NFL does with last week's game. So, I mean, if you're Baltimore, again, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, Hamlin is your first thought. But if you're Baltimore, you're like, man, really wanted to see that game kind of play out because if Buffalo beats Cincinnati, then, hey, we have a chance in week 18 to win the division. But listen, I think Baltimore, this game's so tough right now. Depending on what the NFL does is how you have to approach this game. If they say they're not going to replay that game and it is what it is, this game means absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. The Chargers have the tiebreaker on Baltimore. So, depending on if the Chargers win or not against Denver, and depending on like what, they can't move. They can go up, I guess, 1, but I mean, Cincinnati would have nothing to play for. So this is a really tough game to talk about until we know what's going to happen with the Cincinnati Buffalo game. But let's chat. We'll go Baltimore first. If this game means nothing for Baltimore, there's no way Lamar plays, right?
I think this game means something for Baltimore either way, because you mentioned they can move up to the 5 seed. And if you move to the 5 seed, you avoid the top 3 seeds. You don't have to play Kansas City, Buffalo, or Cincinnati. So it's a pretty big deal to move into that 5 seed.
But you're hoping the Chargers lose to Denver, I guess.
Correct.
But,
yep. They have to have the Chargers lose also to do that.
No, I mean, so okay, I hear you. I hear you, but
they're still not playing Lamar here. Like that's
I mean,
kind of where I'm at.
If Huntley's out too, like I don't know. I just don't see how you play Lamar. I don't see how you can really touch anything here. Maybe Dobbins at 5,700. You really need him to score a touchdown, which he's not done great with because of who his quarterbacks are. Because like Gus Edwards can get some work too. I mean, it's such a tough scenario. Yeah, man. I feel like Baltimore tries to win this game because you never know what's going to happen in that Denver game. But who plays quarterback? I just, listen, if this game matters, like if whatever the NFL does with that Cincinnati game, if Baltimore can beat Cincinnati, Lamar Jackson plays in this game. And then this conversation completely changes because if Lamar plays in this game, now we're talking Mark Andrews at 5,400. He's one of the top plays on the entire slate. So it just becomes a whole different conversation if Lamar is playing. But if it's going to be Huntley and it's not going to be Lamar, I'm just going to continue to do what I've been doing with Baltimore. And that's just not playing these guys. Like they scored 13 against Pittsburgh. They scored 17 against Atlanta, one of the worst defenses in the league. 3 points against Cleveland. 16 points against Pittsburgh and 10 points against Denver. They have not scored over 17 points in the last 5 games. And I mean, Cincinnati's a good defense. Cincinnati, depending on what happens, might not have anything to play for. But, I think we get at least potentially like the first half or so for the starters for Cincinnati. So I just don't see anything. If it's Huntley, I don't play anything from Baltimore outside of maybe taking some shots on Dobbins. If it's Jackson, it's a completely different conversation.
Yeah, quarterback definitely matters here. I like the Dobbins call. I'm interested in him either way. Very tough matchup against Cincinnati, like you've mentioned. They've been an outstanding defense all year, despite dealing with some injuries. The other spot I'm interested in is the ends, and it's just because they fill a tight end spot. Huntley found Andrews. Andrews had 9 targets, caught all 9 of them last week. And Isaiah likely scored. He's only 2,800. I think you can take shots on the tight ends either way. I agree. I would be much more likely to do that if Jackson was the quarterback over Huntley. But like Andrews' price has come down so much. He's a guy that has 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in his range of outcomes, even with Huntley as his quarterback, I think. 5,400, I'm still interested in Andrews, and likely just as a complete punt, I think you can play as well.
Going to the other side of this game, this is kind of where it gets tricky because if that game gets ruled as a tie, I don't even know because like Cincinnati, they would have a higher win percentage, so they would have the tiebreaker on Baltimore, even if Baltimore wins this game. If that like, unless they take a loss, which how do you give them a loss if you don't play the game, kind of thing?
Yeah, that's not happening. Right. It's so either a tie or a no contest, and that only affects the winning percentage.
Yeah, the only.
But either way, it's still higher than Baltimore's.
I still don't see like. If you're Cincinnati, like the only way I think this game has a remote chance of playing is if Kansas City loses on Saturday. I think that's the only way we see Baltimore, Cincinnati, or Buffalo, Cincinnati. Anyway, there's a lot to discuss here for Cincinnati. It really just comes down to what's going on with this game. Browning got activated already elevated. I don't see a reason for Cincinnati. Like T. Higgins, from what he's been at the hospital every day. We need to be praying for him too. I mean, mentally, I'm sure he's going through a lot from that collision. And he's probably going through a lot. So we need to be praying for him too. But Cincinnati's impossible to talk about until we know what the NFL is doing with the Cincinnati Buffalo game. But I think everyone's kind of thinking that it's either a tie, a no contest, And in that scenario, Cincinnati has absolutely nothing to play for. They will be the 3 seed no matter what, because Buffalo would have the tiebreaker on Cincinnati. Cincinnati would have the tiebreaker on Baltimore. So Cincinnati will be the 3 seed. They rest their guys, right? You're not getting Jamar Chase hurt, who's kind of been banged up all year. Why hurt Burrow? You can't move. You're the 3 seed. You know exactly what you're getting. I mean, this is a scenario where, you might play Baltimore again next week in the playoffs. Why risk your players in this game?
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at here. And on like talking through that, that gives me a little bit more interest in the Baltimore side that we just talked about, even if Huntley's the quarterback. But yeah, I don't
Baltimore
see
defense with Dobbins becomes
yeah,
more playable.
Yep. I mean, if we end up seeing Brandon Allen at quarterback, that's absolutely in play. Even if we get a half of Brandon Allen at quarterback, that's certainly in play. I just there's no way you can consider targeting Cincinnati players until you know exactly what's happening here.
And it really, it just comes down to what are they doing with the Cincinnati Buffalo game. I mean,
right.
It's a really tough decision. Like if those meetings in the NFL office this week that's just tough. I mean, there's no right answer. Like there's no right answer. I mean, it's just a scenario. It's a lose-lose situation. I mean, they made the right call the other night, postponing the game.
For sure.
There's no way you go back on the field in that scenario. So,
right.
All right, we're cruising along here. We got Tampa Bay at Atlanta, 40.5 total. Atlanta is a 4.5 point favorite. I mean, Vegas is telling us everything we need to know. They came out and they said Tom Brady is going to start this game. They're the 4 seed. They're not moving. Tom Brady is not playing a lot in this game. Mike Evans is not playing a lot in this game. Chris Godwin, Fournette, these guys are not playing a lot in this game. But Atlanta is one of the worst defenses in the league. And I don't want to play Blaine Gabbert, but I might be taking some shots on Vaughn and White, those types of guys. Russell Gage against Atlanta at 4,400. This is one of those scenarios where we start talking week 18, last week of the NFL, and it's man, there's no way they play more than a quarter. 3/4 of Gage at 4,400 against the worst defense. Sign me up. And I would assume they would kind of be like a split backfield between Vaughn and White, but why get White hurt too? So
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I think it could be like Keyshawn Vaughn week at 4,700. So, excuse me. I like the cheap plays here for Tampa. I just don't see them playing their guys here. And I don't trust Blaine Gabbert, but I also think that he's capable enough to get the ball to Gage or, Miller, Perryman, these guys, any of these cheap guys, but I think it's going to be Gage.
Yeah, I like your thinking here and how we're playing this game. Agree with you. The Tampa Bay starters are not playing more than a quarter here. I don't think. The running backs are my first thought, and I kind of agree with you. I think Rachaad White is too involved. He's too important to their offense. Tom Brady has just been a huge part of how they move the ball is checking it down to these running backs, and they rotate Fournette and White a ton. I don't think they would. I think they consider Rachaad White a starter as well. So Keyshawn Vaughn is the guy I would look to. He hasn't had a ton of success in his few years in the NFL. So it's still risky, but he's 4,700. If he gets quarters of carries and checkdowns from Blaine Gabbert, I think he's absolutely in play. I don't know if I trust the passing game. I know the Atlanta defense is really bad. Gage is 4,400. I don't hate that call. Maybe somebody like Scotty Miller you could take a shot on, but
I think it's going to be Perryman. He was inactive. He's been inactive. He's one that maybe he's been working on the practice squad and, getting some second team reps with Gabbert. Gage is still wide receiver 3 with Julio banged up. So maybe it's Perryman at 3,500.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. He's a 1-year veteran type guy. I don't think there's any long-term plans for him here. He hasn't been a part of anything they've done. this year. So yeah, I kind of like the Perryman call actually. Yeah, I think you're looking at a cheap punt play here that could get some additional run because Tampa Bay pulls their starters after. I honestly could see it happening after a series.
I could see them not playing them at all. Like just keeping them active and just not playing them. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked though. 11:30 Sunday morning rolls around and we get Brady inactive, Godwin inactive, Evans inactive. There's no point in playing these guys. They really like this team right here is one of those teams where they have absolutely nothing to play for. Like nothing at all. Nothing to play for. It's kind of like, is it the Giants, right? I think the Giants are the other team that like they have absolutely nothing to play for. They can't be the 5 seed. They can't drop to the 7 seed. Talk about them here in a minute. But yeah, Tampa Bay, this is one of the worst. They're 30th in DVOA. Atlanta is terrible against the pass and the run. I think you look at these cheap wide receivers. I think you take some shots on Vaughn, especially like if Fournette is inactive. There's no reason to even run him out for a series in this game with his injury like history. So yeah, I'm going to be taking some shots here on these cheap Tampa guys. And one of the reasons here too, like I kind of like Ritter and I kind of like Atlanta. This is a great opportunity for Desmond Ritter to finish the season on a high note. Tampa's going to be taking out some of their better defensive players as well. It's not going to just be offense. London is 4,900. We know the connection is there. Like, I might actually play some Ritter-London combos because it's week 18. And as a rookie quarterback, like, you kind of need to prove something. Even if it's against a bad defense, this is a great opportunity for him to come out and finish the season on a high note. Atlanta's a 4.5 point favorite in this game.
Desmond Ritter is not a name I expected to hear in your player
week 18,
pool,
man. I play more lineups
indeed
than I do all season in week 18 because I think the edge is just massive. Week 1 and week 18, I think the edge is just massive.
I can completely get on with your Drake London call. He's seen an awesome target share over the last 4 weeks, really all season long. They just haven't thrown the ball enough. But like he's been near double-digit targets each of the last 4 weeks. I love Drake London here. I don't know that I'm playing Desmond Ritter alongside of him, but I will play some Drake London for sure. I'm interested in Tyler Algier. We talked about him last week. He had another great game. This on paper is a terrible matchup against a fantastic Tampa Bay defense, but you just touched on it. They're gonna rest guys on the defensive side here also. I think Algier at 5,600 in a perceived bad matchup is a fantastic play. So Algier and London are the guys for me. I don't think I'm getting to Desmond Ritter. There is a guy in this range that I'm considering shots on that we'll get to.
We're going to talk about him too. Don't worry.
Ritter does have some upside for sure. He that will run the football. So maybe I get there by Sunday. Not a guy that I came in here intending to play, but you have me reconsidering.
As a rookie quarterback, Atlanta, they're 6-10. They're not getting a first pick. Whatever. Like they go into this game. It's the last game at home of the season. This game's in Atlanta. I think I'd have a little bit different thoughts if this game was in Tampa. This game's in Atlanta on the turf at home in front of their fans. Let Ritter have a game to kind of get the fan base a little excited for next year. They were really excited when they drafted, London and they got Ritter, and everyone kind of came into the season like, oh, Mariota is going to start like the first 5 or 6 weeks, and then Ritter's going to come in, and this is going to be a completely different team. I think this is a game you let Desmond Ritter just have a game. And let it open up the playbook a little bit. Let him throw 35 times in this game. So I'm going to play some. I like London a lot. Like regardless if I'm playing him or not, I like London a lot. I love the Algier call. He was someone that, you've been talking about the last couple weeks. So I like that call a lot. Don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about 10th DVOA. Don't worry about like 8th passing yards. Like, does not matter. The Tampa Bay defense plays a half at most this week. So don't worry about those numbers. Carolina at New Orleans, a game that means absolutely nothing. 41.5 total. New Orleans are 3.5 point favorites. This game is in that category that means absolutely nothing. I think the biggest thing here on the New Orleans side, we'll talk about Carolina first, but I just want to point out Taysom Hill might not play, and I don't know that's kind of a big thing. So talk talk about that in a second. We'll go to Carolina here. Absolutely nothing to play for. Hate these scenarios where you get two teams that, outside of it just being a division game, I mean, like, who wants to finish second in the NFC South type of game? Like, what are your thoughts here when it comes to Carolina?
So I agree with your sentiment on the game not mattering, and that doesn't generally fit our narrative for what we're looking for in Week 18. But it is a dome game in now January where we have a lot of cold weather, and weather doesn't look too bad. I didn't look into it a ton, but regardless, it's still in the dome. Sam Darnold has played capably. I'm not playing Sam Darnold, but DJ Moore has seen an awesome target share since Darnold has come back. 10 targets last week, went for 117 and a touchdown. I think you have to consider DJ Moore in the dome at 6,100. They're a run-first team, but it's a split backfield. So DJ Moore is the one guy I'm considering from Carolina here. If you wanted to take shots on the running backs, I wouldn't talk you off of it. I don't know how to break down that situation. Like Hubbard and Foreman can have just kind of traded off production each week. I don't think I'll chase it. There's a lot of cheap running backs I think we can play on this slate, but I do like DJ Moore.
One thing to note about DJ Moore too is he's 122 yards away from 1,000-yard season.
Love it.
I don't know. I mean, there's bonuses in contracts for a lot of players like that, those types of bonuses, and I don't know if he has or not. I usually look, but I haven't looked yet. So I mean, he might see 12, 15 targets in this game. Like, this is a spot where, like, if you're Sam Darnold and you want to kind of like feed your guy, like go out and get him his bonus. I mean, these bonuses are like sometimes $100,000 or something. So, hey, I'll kick you a little Rolex or something type of thing,
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm joking, but I'm serious. I'm kind of like,
no,
serious.
That's legit. Yeah.
Yeah. Like half joking, half serious, but bonuses, like if you can find a list, there's usually a list like Thursday or Friday of this week. And you can kind of find like who has incentive. And it's usually like guys that like maybe had a down year last year or came in injured or any of those things. And you can take advantage of that, but I'd have to see. But yeah, I mean, DJ Moore at 6,100 would be my main target here for Carolina, not touching the running back situation. I don't see the need for Carolina to be like, all right, we're going to give Hubbard all the carries this week, or we're going to give Foreman all the carries, unless there's a report that comes out and they're like, hey, we want to see what we have for next year kind of thing. I'd not touch on the running back situation. I expect it to be 50-50 at best. New Orleans side, yeah, I mean, very interesting, right? If Taysom Hill doesn't play in this game, gosh, it's one of those scenarios where Andy Dalton's like 300 yards away from 3,000 yards. Is there a deal there where he gets a bonus? Olave is 18 yards away from 1,000, so I think he'll get one catch at least. The Saints have nothing to play for as well, but I mean, they have some talent. They want to see what's going on here. Do you play Kamara? Do you get him hurt? I mean, is he in a contract year? I can't remember or not. But yeah, I mean, Taysom Hill being out definitely opens up some potential for like goal line carries, especially against Carolina. They're a bad pass defense, terrible pass defense, 27th DVOA. What are your thoughts here on the Saints?
Yeah, Olave for sure. In the dome, there's higher pass volume. Olave has looked amazing. He's going to get that 1,000 yards. I don't see any reason. Like, he'll probably play the whole game here. Kamara is the one that I'm really struggling with. Like, I just don't understand this guy's role this year. Taysom being out would be a huge deal for his touchdown equity. But where has his passing game role gone? 1 target last week. Like, I don't know if Dalton has historically been a guy that doesn't
check
in the
passing game last week. They kind of controlled that whole game last week.
Yeah, fair enough. But even before that, like the weeks before that, 4 targets, 2 targets, 3 targets. Like, this is a guy we're used to getting like 8 to 10 targets weekly. We know he's an extremely talented receiver out of the backfield. And that's where he gets all his fantasy. That's why he's been a first-round fantasy pick the last few years. Like, it's just disappeared. So I don't know. Adding some touchdown equity here, a decent matchup against Carolina, I might end up on it. I'm struggling with Kamara right now. I like some Olave. I think you could take some shots on Shaheed too at 4,200. Just targeting a passing game in the dome here. I don't hate that. He's had a pretty solid role here over the last few weeks, at least 4 targets in 4 straight weeks. So Shaheed at 4,200, another guy I want to throw out there.
Kamara is interesting. I like that call as well with Shaheed at 4,200. I don't necessarily like Dalton, but I think the passing game's in play. This team's just so bad against the pass that, yeah, I mean, if you're New Orleans, like, I mean, they don't have anything to play for necessarily, but you won 3 straight games. Maybe, you try to finish the season on a strong note with a 4th game here, and you move on to next year. Because, I mean, that's where a lot of teams are at right now. So Cleveland at Pittsburgh, 40.5 total here. Pittsburgh, a 2.5 point favorites. I mean, the Cleveland, they're eliminated. They're 7-9. They're not making the playoffs now. Pittsburgh needs a lot to happen. Like, they need New England to lose and they need Miami to lose. And then if they win, they're in. All these games are at 1 o'clock, so Pittsburgh is in a must-win situation. We'll go Cleveland first. What, if anything, do you like here for the Browns?
Not a ton. Tough matchup for Chubb. Like you mentioned, Pittsburgh's going to be playing to win here. Pittsburgh's had a really solid run defense. I just maybe some Amari Cooper at 6K. We saw him have a big week last week, but it was
play.
He is questionable. You're right.
Yeah.
Yep. And even last week, it was one big play, right, that he kind of got there on that, and it was his second touchdown. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love the Cleveland side here. I think the Pittsburgh defense is really solid, and they were missing TJ Watt for a lot of the year. He's back now, so like this is a tough spot for Cleveland. They're not super motivated other than trying to keep a division opponent out of the playoffs. Maybe Njoku at 3,900, but yeah, not a lot to love on the Cleveland side here.
All right, hear me out. This game matters for Cleveland.
I feel a Deshaun Watson take.
No, I don't like Watson.
Okay.
I think you get your production for Watson, whether it be Cooper or Peoples-Jones, like whoever. If Cooper's out, I like Peoples-Jones at 4,700. If Cooper plays, then I like Cooper. I like the Njoku call. This game matters for Cleveland. These two teams do not like each other. If you're Cleveland, you want to win this game. You want to beat Pittsburgh, keep them out of the playoffs potentially. Miami's playing with a backup. Pittsburgh or New England's playing Buffalo if they play full strength. Like, Cleveland wants nothing more than to win this game, in my opinion. So I don't think I play Watson. I just think his ceiling's kind of capped in general in this offense. I mean, like last week he played solid and he still only scored 21.8 fantasy points. And that was with 3 passing touchdowns. He had a 122 rating. He had a really solid game. The cap is just there. I mean, he's just not going to throw the ball a ton. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I like Peoples-Jones if Cooper sits. I like Cooper if he plays. And either way, I like Njoku for tournaments. So just listen, Cleveland wants to win this game. You could even, I think, take some shots on Nick Chubb, but like you said, with Watt being back, I think it's a little bit tougher matchup for him where you beat Pittsburgh this year more has just been in the passing game. They're 4th in DVOA, the 7th fewest rushing yards, but passing is where you're going to have to kind of beat them. And I think that production just kind of goes through Cooper or Peoples-Jones. So I'm going to play some of those guys. Again, it's week 18. Got to take some shots, and that's where I'm going to take some shots. Pittsburgh side, I love Harris. He's one of my favorite running back plays on the slate. This is a must-win game. He doesn't come off the field. This is a guy that, Warren is there, sure, cares. He's going to play 70% of the snaps. He's going to touch the ball a ton. He's 46 yards away from 1,000 rushing yards. He's 1 touchdown away from double-digit rushing yards, like touchdowns. Like Harris. Cleveland's terrible against the run. Harris. I love this spot for him.
Yeah, right there with you. That's exactly how I'm playing this Pittsburgh team as well. We've complained about the Najee Harris role at times this year. We've complained about his efficiency at times this year. but dude has been a different guy the past 3 weeks. The Jaylen Warren experience, I don't know if that was injury related there for a minute with Najee Harris, but they seem to have kind of moved past that, and they're going back to Najee Harris as kind of the lead running back. We saw 22 carries last week, 16 the week before, 24 the week before that, and he's been involved in the passing game as well. So 6,100, fantastic matchup against this Cleveland defense that struggled against the run all season long. Absolutely with you. Love the Najee Harris call.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those interesting, situations just in general where this game matters so much for Pittsburgh. I mean, if you're a Pittsburgh, coaching staff, we have a legit chance, Miami's starting potentially Skylar Thompson, even like a Buffalo non-full strength team has a chance to beat New England. So yeah, I mean, I think that, if you're Pittsburgh, you're like, yeah, let's go kind of thing. So,
yep. For sure.
So I found some of the bonuses and stuff that who were we talking about? I forget who we were talking about.
DJ Moore, I think, is 120 yards.
Yeah, I didn't find anything, he wasn't one of the highlighted guys. Higbee is one of them. We're coming up on him. He is 13 yards away from 175 grand. He's one of the big ones. DeAndre Carter is 55 yards away and 2 catches away from 200 grand.
See, that's huge. For fringe guys like that, I mean, what's his salary on the year? 800,000 maybe he makes 1.5. I have no idea, honestly, but that's a large chunk of change for a fringe NFL player like that.
Garrett Everett for the Chargers as well. He's 5 catches away from $250,000. So just, I mean, some things to note, Debo can make $500,000 if he ran the ball for 380 rushing yards, but he's 100 and something away. So that is not as much, but I mean, there's some really close ones in the Jags game. We're not covering that one, but Zay Jones is 2 catches away from 250 grand. He's 98 yards away from $500,000. Juju is 2 yards away from 1.5 million. Jamal Williams 4 yards away from 250 grand. And then I think one of the bigger ones is Christian Kirk is 2 catches and 91 yards away from $1 million. So there you go. All right. That's the main ones that I looked through a bunch of articles and stuff. Those are the main ones that I saw. That's not including records and stuff. Patrick Mahomes, I think, what is it, 430 or something he needs to break the regular season record or something. So yeah, that's not records. That's just money for big ones. I was trying to see Carter. We'll talk about Carter more when we get there.
Yeah, that was the most interesting one to me for sure.
Oh, there's a dude from Minnesota, Zadarius Smith. He needs a sack to earn 750 grand. He's going to be getting after the quarterback this week. That's for sure.
Yep.
1 sack for 750, baby. I'm coming after you. I'm blitzing every play. All right. We got Houston at Indy taking on the Colts here. 38.5 total. The Colts are a 2.5 point favorite in this one. I mean, this is a really interesting game because, I mean, if you're the Texans, you want to lose. There's no way you want to win this game. You want to lose this game at all costs. So, yeah, I mean, what are we doing here with Houston? Is this a game where we potentially see Driscoll get the nod? I mean, what are you doing if you're Houston? Do you who gives you the best chance to lose?
The problem is Indy wants to lose too because they need a quarterback and they have a chance at a top 5 pick. This is just a disgusting game.
Yep.
The flip side of that is though, the players on the team are playing for their next opportunity in the NFL also, right? So the players on the field will be trying hard. The front office and the GM, potentially the coach, but I don't know that either of these coaches are returning either. Might have incentive to lose. But more so, it's just the front office. So, the coaches and the players on the field have more incentive to win than, you realize, I think, than anyone realizes. I don't know. Both teams are incentivized to lose. but it's just an ugly game overall, and I'm not exactly sure how to handle it. But everyone knows that Houston wants to lose, but I think it's kind of lost that Indy also wants to lose. Like, they have no options at quarterback. There's going to be 3 quarterbacks or so that are probably going to go in the top 5 of this draft, and Indy probably wants one of those guys. So they're trying to lose also. I don't know what that means for how we play this for DFS. I think both sides are in play, but I don't know how this game plays out exactly. I think the Royce Freeman role is okay, but the efficiency has been terrible. I can't imagine Brandon Cooks being super motivated here with his massive contract. Maybe a guy like Amari Rodgers, who is playing for that next opportunity in the NFL, who's still a fairly young. I think I take shots on guys like that in this game. I don't know that I'm playing Davis Mills. He's probably going to end up splitting some time with Driscoll. Like you said, they've been using this quarterback by committee type of thing, using Driscoll more as a rusher and Mills as the guy when they need to throw. But I'm not completely writing this game off. I don't know. I think Amari Rodgers might be my favorite wide receiver play.
I don't think you can write this game off just because of how ugly it could potentially be. I mean, I think both of these defenses are really interesting. Not once this week here have I said play Houston defense, but I think the Houston defense is really interesting this week because, I mean, they're just so cheap at 2,700. They have double-digit upside in this game for sure. So I think both defenses are very much in play. Freeman, I think, is in play for sure. I like the Rodgers call. I did not have him on my list. I just put him on my list because I like that call. Him and Chris Moore kind of in that same scenario. Next year, Cooks is with Houston, right? He's under contract for next year. I think so.
Yeah. They end up cutting him. I can't believe he didn't get traded. I don't understand. He's probably overpaid for what he is at this point, but the dude's still made a ton of money in his career. It's not like he's still trying to feed his family or anything. Where guys like Amari Rodgers, who are just getting started in the league, are still looking to make a living.
Yeah. So maybe Dorsett too. He was very involved last week. In garbage time. I don't know. Listen, at the end of the day, Nico Collins definitely earned a spot next year with this foot. He should come back and he definitely earned a spot. He had a fantastic start to the season before he got hurt. So whether he be wide receiver 2 or what happens with Cooks. So I like the idea of maybe looking at a Chris Moore, a Rodgers, or a Dorsett. But I do have interest in Freeman. He hasn't been efficient, but I mean, it's Indy. They're a team you can run the ball against. They've been great against the pass this year. I wouldn't say great, but they've been good against the pass. So, the Indy side of this game is so interesting. I really think this might be one of those games where we see Deion Jackson kind of get the rock. They know what they got in Zach Moss. I think we could potentially see out of nowhere, no announcement, anything, Deion Jackson get the rock in this game and get 15 carries and score a touchdown and no one's playing him. So large field tournaments, I'll have exposure to Moss and Jackson. Houston's just so incredibly bad against the run that either one of these guys could have a big game. It's just whoever gets the work. Ellinger's not good. He's 5K against Houston. I don't know if I go there. There's no real incentive. Pittman's 105 yards away from 1,000, so maybe they, get him involved in this game and maybe try to get over 100. But he hasn't gone over 100 receiving yards since week 6, so I don't really expect him to have that big game. Paris Campbell's been involved here, but yeah, I mean the passing game's just been atrocious. I think you're looking at the running backs here for Indy.
Yeah, I mean we've been targeting the Houston run defense all season long. I think that's exactly how you go back to this. Zach Moss was definitely a guy I was interested in. I think your Deion Jackson call is very interesting. It might be another evaluation situation. Like you said, they Zach Moss is kind of what he is. They've seen a lot from him. I think he's been fairly impressive over the past 3 weeks. Maybe they continue to evaluate Deion Jackson a little bit further in this game. But no matter who's carrying the football here for Indy, I'm interested because the Houston run defense is atrocious. I don't trust the quarterback play whatsoever. I think Michael Pittman is an outstanding receiver, but 6,100 with Ellinger throwing in the football, they might try to get him that 100 yards, but I don't know that it's going to happen even just because of the quarterback play. So it's the running backs for me, Moss for sure, and I'll consider some Deion Jackson now too.
So really quick, like my thought process behind Jackson too, it's just not like a random like thought. Wilkins got like released yesterday or Monday or Tuesday. They brought up Jake Funk to the active roster. Like, I mean, I don't know. It really just seems like this might be a scenario like 15. I'm not saying he's going to get 25 touches in this game. I think in 15 touches, all he needs is a touchdown with 15 touches at 3% ownership, 2% ownership, 1% ownership. Like, and Moss is the guy. Moss would be my favorite. Like, I'm going to rank Moss ahead of Jackson. I'm just going to play Jackson in some large field tournaments.
The Deion Jackson thing is weird to me because it seemed like they really liked this guy, especially like his pass catching role. Like when Jonathan Taylor went down early, Deion Jackson was really involved. And then
they got Zach Moss for hardly nothing, though, didn't they?
Yeah, it was like Nyheim Hines and a 4th round pick, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it was very.
It was like a freebie kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. But I still thought that, I don't know, like they still liked Deion Jackson enough to use him now that Jonathan Taylor is out of the picture, and he's just kind of disappeared the last couple of weeks. So very curious. I don't know. Like, I'm interested in that for sure because I think he was a guy that he was kind of in their longer term plans early on in the year. Maybe Zach Moss has just passed him and they feel like they don't need him anymore, but I'm willing to take a shot on him in the spot for sure.
He got banged up too, didn't he? I thought he got banged up. I thought Jackson got banged up too around the same time as Taylor.
He did. Early in the season. Yeah. Yep. But I'm talking about, I think it was let's see. I'm just looking at his game log here. Maybe it was the Chargers game after Taylor went down, and there was some altercation with a member of the coaching staff or something. I think, I don't know the exact story behind it, but there was something that happened when we like, he was pretty chalky, I believe. Maybe it might have even been a showdown, but he just hardly played at all that game. I think it was the Chargers game.
Yeah, like again, like I'm going to play a lot of Zach Moss in this game. I'm just saying I'm going to have a little exposure to Deion Jackson in large field tournaments. Moss is the play. Like the Indy defense, the Colts, like both of the defenses are in play in this game. This game could be really, really ugly. Both of these defenses in play. All right, we're moving on. We got to the 4:00 games. Yeah, I think it was the Minnesota game. Yes, Matt, I'm with you. I think you're right. Dallas at Washington, 40.5 total here. Dallas a 7.5 point favorites. I mean, Dallas has something to play for this week. You know, they obviously want to win this game just in case Philadelphia loses their game. But I mean, Dallas is playing for something. Washington's not. They're out. They got eliminated. So yeah, I mean, Dallas 7.5 point favorite. I think for at least until the third quarter, we're going to get the starters in this game. You know, we saw that like Pollard back at practice full. And yeah, I mean, coming off a huge win against Philadelphia last week, or 2 weeks ago, kept them alive from this spot. What are your thoughts here on Dallas?
I'm interested in this game. Because, like, Dallas has motivation, and it's very similar to the Pittsburgh game. These two teams do not like each other. Washington's gonna be fighting back on the other side here. So I have a ton of interest. Like, the running back situation is still very split, very tough to figure out. And it's not like either of them are cheap either. So that's tough. I'll take some shots on CeeDee Lamb. He's priced up. And this is not the easiest matchup. Washington defense has been playing much better here recently. I'll have some Dak to CD stacks. But I think I want to mix in some Gallup, and I might even take some shots on T.Y. Hilton as well. Like, they've been looking for this third wide receiver. Noah Brown was having a decent run there for a while, but 5 targets for T.Y. Hilton last week. He's still only 3,400. I don't hate shots there. They clearly signed him for a reason. They're looking to get him involved. So T.Y. Hilton at almost minimum price, I'm interested in. And then Dalton Schultz also, too.
Yeah, Schultz is my favorite. I love this spot for him. Yep. But I love the T.Y. Hilton call. I didn't even think about T.Y. Hilton. Yeah, that's a really interesting call. I still, like, if I'm playing the running backs, it's still Pollard for me. I still think Pollard has the higher ceiling. Like, Elliott disappointed everyone that played him last week. Shouldn't have played him. Sorry. I had to do it. Listen, I think Pollard still has the higher ceiling here for Dallas. We don't have a ton of quarterback plays this week, so I do think Dak is in play for sure. Washington side of this one, I mean, Sam Howell is going to start. This is a tough matchup. You got a Dallas team that wants to win, one of the better defenses in the league. This is not the place you want your first start to be. With that being said, he has a ton of talent around him. McLaurin, Dotson, Samuel, depending on Robinson and Gibson, Logan Thomas. Like, he has a ton of talent. You know, that's one of the reasons that we saw Wentz do so well. That's one of the reasons that we saw Heineke do so well, do okay, both of those guys. Talk to me about Washington in this spot.
I love Sam Howell in this spot. I think the Dallas defense is overrated. Their pass rush is outstanding, but their secondary is beatable, I think. And the Washington wide receivers are awesome. I think all three of McLaurin, Dotson, and Samuel are extremely talented guys. I think Logan Thomas is a serviceable tight end. And Sam Howell is not a non-prospect. I know he wasn't like a first-round pick or anything, but Sam Howell was a very productive college quarterback. He was dealing with an injury early in the year, and I'm surprised that it's taken this long for Washington to give him a shot. But I'm very interested here. I think Washington is going to be trying to play to beat Dallas here, even though it doesn't matter for their playoff hopes or anything like that. They're division rivals. So similar to what you were saying with Cleveland, I think that's the spot that Washington is in. I think Dallas is the better team, and Washington ends up playing from behind. And Sam Howell gives a chance to kind of let it rip a little bit here. So I'm interested in all three of the receivers as well. McLaurin at 5,900. We saw him and Wentz just were never quite able to get on the same page. With Heineke, he had much more production. We don't know what it's going to look like with Sam Howell, but I'm fine taking some shots on McLaurin. I think he's an uber talented wide receiver. And then Dotson at 4,500 and Samuel at 4,000 are cheap enough where I'm just fine taking shots on that. So I like this Washington side quite a bit here.
The other thing too is this is easily one of those scenarios where Dallas goes into halftime, sees Philly's up by 3 touchdowns, and like, hey, we're going to take some of these defensive and guys out. I mean, no reason to get our guys hurt when we know we're playing next week and we're the 5 seed. They can only go from the 5 seed. I think they could be the 2 seed. I don't think they have the tiebreaker on San Francisco. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they don't have the tiebreaker on San Francisco. Because San Francisco is 9-2 in the conference and Dallas is 8-3. So I think San Francisco has a tiebreaker on. Yes. Yeah. So like if Philly lost, San Francisco has a tiebreaker on them as well for what it's worth. So, I mean, this is one of those scenarios where they're going to be watching that Philadelphia game. Like the coaching, there's going to be people that say, hey, there's no reason to get Dak hurt, the type of thing. So that's the risk in playing like CeeDee Lamb and these expensive guys for Dallas. But it's also like the bonus of maybe taking some shots on Howell at 4,900 because you might not get the second half or second part of the third and fourth quarters of this good defense. And like maybe he could come out and just sling the ball a little bit. And, you know, like he's playing for a job next year. That's the kind of incentive you want in week 18. Yep. So like Hal, I like Dotson. I like McLaurin. Way too much talent. Not my favorite though. There's a cheaper. I mean, he's not cheaper, but there's a guy in the 5Ks that I really like that we're going to talk about here in a minute. All right. Giants at Philadelphia. Hey, perfect kind of segue, right? 42.5 total. Philadelphia is a 14-point favorite. They should absolutely crush the Giants in this game. The Giants have absolutely nothing to play for. Because I mean, do the Giants like Dallas or Philadelphia more? I mean, at the end of the day, who knows? Yeah, I mean, the Giants, they really haven't come out and said whether or not, like, Daniel Jones and these guys are going to play. But, I mean, Barkley said he wants to play. But why? Like, why? Like, Saquon, you came out and you showed us that, like, you're back. You had a fantastic year. You're back. You did great. Why? Why play Saquon Barkley in this game if you're the Giants?
I think Barkley's a free agent, but still, like, why risk injury for Saquon Barkley? Yeah, I can't see. I'm pretty sure that he is. But yeah, there's no reason for the Giants to risk injury to anybody here. I can't see them playing starters. It's a situation very similar to Tampa Bay. Like, maybe you get a half, maybe you get a series. I find it highly unlikely that they play the entire game here. So I'm probably just avoiding the Giants altogether.
He is an unrestricted free agent. You're right. I knew he signed a 5-year or 4-year deal. I just couldn't remember if it was this year or next year it ended. Gosh, if you're Barkley, why? I don't want to go out there and play. Like, even okay, like, yeah. I mean, I don't like the Giants. I like the Philly defense a lot in this game. I don't see myself getting onto the Giants here. Daniel Jones has been a man. Just like the last 2 weeks, he's just like last week against the Colts. Like, I had some pieces of like his like counterparts, which were fine. But man, Daniel Jones was like the man last week. Like 2 rushing touchdowns, like throwing the ball to like. I mean, I'll take some shots on Hodgins. I'll take some shots on James. I would probably rank Slayton third. And he's really kind of favored these 2 guys. So maybe this would be the Slayton week. But for me, it's taking shots on Hodgins. It's taking shots on James. If I am Saquon Barkley, I'm not playing in this game. Like, like no chance. If Barkley sits, Breida is 5K. No reason not to run him out there on some teams. But I mean, it's a tough matchup against Philadelphia. Thoughts here on Philly?
Yeah, I mean, I think they want to make sure they lock up that 1 seed. The bye is a huge deal. I don't know what whether Jalen Hurts is playing. It seems like he's kind of trending towards playing here. I think that Philly becomes extremely interesting if he plays. I don't know. Like, I could see the Giants just not putting up enough where he has to play the whole game. But I think even in this situation, you get like 3 quarters out of him. The price isn't like we're not getting a huge discount here. So you need a ceiling performance for him to pay off, especially with a lot of the like there's plenty of cheaper stuff in play this week. But I do have interest in Hurts. Hurts to AJ Brown has always been kind of the thing that I like targeting. I think Devonta Smith is fine, but his price is now up close enough to AJ Brown that I don't even know that, like, if I had 50 lineups, maybe I play Hurts on 10 of them and 8 of them would be AJ Brown to 2 Devonta Smith or something like that. And then I think Goddard is fine. You can certainly include him in your Hurts AJ Brown stacks. Miles Sanders burned me last week. I was huge on him last week. I played a ton. Did not work out. Like, nobody saw that game script coming. I think you can go right back to him here. I think you get the positive game script here, especially if the Giants aren't intending on fighting back here. He's the $5,900 price tag, I think is fine as long as he gets the work that we expect him to. You want those 18 to 20 carries though.
I like Sanders a lot more if Hurts is back, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
This game matters too much for Philadelphia not to play Hurts if he's ready. I mean, this is a number 1 seed. This is a bye. This is huge. This is a huge game.
Yeah, I mean, basically you play to get him in the following week, right? If you get the bye, and then he can get the rest before the playoff game.
So I need to look and see the Giants. I mean, can they move to the 7 seed? So maybe there is incentive for the Giants to play this game. I need to look and see how the Giants rank like tiebreaker to like Seattle and Green Bay. The Giants
they're ahead of all those teams.
No.
Are 8-8, and the Giants they have the tie. They're 9-6-1.
That's right.
Yeah. So the Giants still have it.
So they can't move from the 6. Okay, my initial research was right. I was looking at it, I was like, man, they're 4-6 in the division or conference. Like, ugh. Green Bay is 6-5, Detroit's 6-5, and Seattle's 5-6. Like, but you're right, the tie. So they don't have anything to play for. They're the 6th seed. Why is Barkley playing?
Yeah, he's
I'll tell you one thing. Wild card week, we're going to talk about Daniel Jones. Wild card week. Hopefully it's against Minnesota. Because I mean, gosh, baby, that would
I love it.
That would be the game. Let's go. All right. Enough on this one. See if Hurts plays. That changes the whole thing. If Hurts sits, I do have interest in Minshew. I will say that at 5,500. I would play some Minshew. I would play some AJ Brown. If I think AJ Brown is in play regardless. Yeah, I mean, I think he's in play regardless. So he's having a really good year. I mean, he's definitely found a home. He's having a great year. So, all right. Up next, we got Arizona at San Francisco. A lot of these afternoon games have a little bit of meaning. I think they all actually have meaning. I'm looking at them. So, Arizona at San Francisco, 40.5 total in this game. San Francisco, 14-point favorite. Yeah, I mean, Arizona, it sounds like David Blah is going to start again. Yeah, so he threw the ball 40 times against Atlanta last week. It wasn't very efficient, but he threw the ball a ton. It doesn't sound like DeAndre Hopkins is going to play this week. Yeah, they already ruled him out with the knee. No reason to play him, really. So I think it's a week that Dortch, 3,800, is someone you're really looking at. It's a really, 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 really tough matchup for a game that really, really matters for the 49ers, but the game script is going to be perfect for a guy like Dortch. He's going to get a ton of targets. Outside of him, I don't really have a ton of interest, but I will say, like, Trey McBride, his targets are on the increase, and we haven't talked about a ton of tight ends this week. So I think that's where I'm getting my Arizona exposure this week. I think I'm going to put James Conner on the shelf this week. I mean, if I'm them, I don't even play him this week. So, and then I don't know if I take shots unless they like come out and say they're going to like start Ingram to kind of see what they have, then I would maybe take some shots at 4,800 because he's someone that can catch the ball in the backfield. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward what I'm going to do at Arizona this week.
Yeah, the running back situation is the first thing I'll touch on. James Conner's role has been literally the best in the NFL here recently. So I don't know what their intentions are. I'm with you. I don't know why they would continue to play him, especially now that he's banged up. Like, just let the guy take the week off.
They're one of those 4-win teams too. They need to lose this game.
Yeah. Interestingly though, Corey Clement ran ahead of Keontae Ingram last week. So if Conner is out, I think you could take some shots on Clement also. Like, I agree. Like, he's kind of a journeyman. He's not even a younger guy, I don't think. I think he's in his like mid to late 20s, where Ingram is like a 2 or 3 year guy in the NFL. Like, you'd think Ingram would be the guy they want to evaluate long term, but that was not the case last week. Clement got the work. So I don't know. Like, both of them would be interesting if they were to find themselves in a lead role here. We'll have to see a little bit more information on that. And if Conner's in, you probably just don't play any of them. I like the Dortch call. Like, his line is insanely similar to Garrett Wilson's, where they both had double-digit targets and couldn't top 20 yards receiving. Just insane stuff. But volume. You go right back to that for the volume. He could easily break one of those off. And like the catches, especially on DraftKings, point per reception. Totally agree with the Dortch call. They say Marquise Brown play. I don't know why he would, honestly. I don't know. It's Dortch for me. I don't want to spend on Brown. Quarterback play is not strong enough to spend that much on a receiver here. So, yeah, I agree that Dortch is the play, and then monitor the running back situation if Connor sits.
I'm going to say one more time, McBride. I mean, there was obviously a connection there. I mean, maybe he's worked with the second unit a lot. Like, there was a connection. I mean, he was the top guy last week. So, just throwing his name out there one more time. San Francisco side, Purdy's kind of that guy for me this week.
Had a feeling that's who you were talking about.
I think this is a perfect opportunity for San Francisco to be very careful with Christian McCaffrey. I think it's very possible that we see like Debo practiced on Wednesday, so I think he's back. I think this is a perfect opportunity for San Francisco to be very careful with Christian McCaffrey. Let Purdy go out and win you this game. I mean, he threw the ball 35 times against Vegas last week. Stealing probably capped at like 25, but I mean, unless Hurts plays, it's not like we have a home run quarterback play on this slate. I mean, it's just that simple.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that take. We're talking about playing guys like Desmond Ridder and Sam Howell. So, like,
really quick, Keith, not to interrupt you, but going back to like the Jets game, I actually might like Mike White more.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's in play. Yeah, I agree. You can take some wild shots on quarterback this week, I think. Like Sam Howell is my favorite. I am with you on Purdy. Absolutely think he's in play. No reason for them to push McCaffrey here. Like, he's a huge key to their success. They paid a ton to bring him in. I think he solidified them as Super Bowl contenders. They're not going to risk him here in this last game. I like Purdy, which means I like some of the receivers. You know I'm going to love Kittle in the spot. I've been talking about him for weeks. Even with Debo potentially coming back, I still think you can take some shots at Kittle. His ceiling is capped a little bit. Like, the main thesis of being on Kittle so much over the past month or so was because Debo missed that time. So slight downgrade to Kittle, but still in play for me. Ayuk's price is up there. I'd probably take shots on Debo and Kittle before I went to Ayuk. Outside of the passing game, I am interested in the backup running back because once they get a lead, I could see them sitting on it and just handing it off a ton. I think Jordan Mason is the guy over Davis Price. $5K, he's not exactly minimum price, but cheap enough. I think you can certainly take some shots on Jordan Mason.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that hamstring is a thing anymore either with Mason. So I like that call. Large field tournament play. Here's the thing, right? If Hurts doesn't come back, San Francisco is going to be very motivated. And if Minshew starts, I have interest in McCaffrey. I know that seems like a wild correlation, but I think it's a huge correlation. I mean, look what they did last week. They did not limit him at all against Vegas last week. I mean, the number one seed is huge. It's so massive. And the 49ers, I don't care what anybody says, they're a Super Bowl contender. Like, they are with Christian McCaffrey, even with Purdy at quarterback, they're a Super Bowl contender. I mean, would I like them more? Would it be Garoppolo or Lance? Yes, but I still think they're like a Super Bowl contender. So, I mean, this game is really interesting. Like, I'll take shots on Purdy. I'll take shots on Christian McCaffrey. I'll take shots on Debo. I'll take shots on Kittle. And I'll play some San Francisco defense. I mean, that's where it becomes really interesting. The San Francisco defense, maybe that's where I get some Jordan Mason. Like, that combination, I think, is really interesting. So, there we go. All right. Chargers and Broncos. 39.5 total in this game. Denver's a 2.5 point favorite in this game. Like, I haven't seen any reports that like Chargers are going to rest people in this game, which I think this line is kind of fishy. And I looked like multiple places too. I was like really thrown off by this line because, I mean, yeah, the Chargers have the tiebreaker over Baltimore, but you don't want to play Buffalo. Like, you want to win this game. I mean, so unless like Baltimore loses early, I mean, yeah, this line seems super fishy to me.
Yeah, I think you just touched on it right there. It depends on what Baltimore does. If Baltimore loses, the Chargers are the 5 seed.
Yep,
if Baltimore Right. If Baltimore wins, then the Chargers need to win to remain seed.
And you
So
want
I
to
think,
be the 5 seed. You do not
oh
want to
yeah,
play
for
Buffalo.
sure. Yeah, we talked about that already. Yep.
Buffalo and Buffalo, or Cincinnati and Cincinnati, like huge difference.
Right. I think that you have to pay attention to that though. If you're playing Chargers, like if you have Chargers lineups late and Baltimore loses, you need to swap off of Chargers because they're going to be resting guys. I'm totally fine playing them if they need to win to maintain the 5 seed. But if Baltimore loses, the Chargers have nothing to play for, and I would not want to pay these prices for the Chargers. I think like I would have a plan certainly of how I'm swapping off. Like I'm not even sure how like a Herbert Keenan Allen stack would compare with a Geno Smith DK Metcalf stack or something, anything like that. But you would definitely want to build that kind of stuff into your lineups because you want to swap off Chargers. If Baltimore ends up losing, they definitely rest people here.
Yeah, I mean, again, we go back to that conversation of why is this game at 4:25? Like this should be a 1:00 game. I get that it's in Denver. Well, if that's the case, like, I don't know. It's tough, but this is like one of those scenarios where you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention because there is no incentive to run out Herbert in this game, or defensive players. Eckler, like Allen's been banged up. He missed 6, 7, 8 games, something crazy. Like there is no reason whatsoever for the Chargers to play this game if Baltimore loses. If Baltimore wins, fire them up, man. Denver's defense has not been playing as good. They have some injuries. They really have nothing to play for. So, yeah, I like the Chargers a lot in the scenario that Baltimore loses. So, in that Baltimore game, there's a good chance they lose. Cincinnati's a really good team. So, if they lose, I mean, I'm off the Chargers in that. I mean, like, if they lose, I have interest in, like, Kelly. Like, that's where I'm going to start, like, Joshua Kelly type plays, like Palmer type, or no, DeAndre Carter. We
forgot about him. Yep.
We just talked about it. Like he has a huge incentive, right? Where is it at? I have it up still. So DeAndre Carter, he can earn $250,000 with 2 more catches this week. So yeah, he's had 9 targets since week 13. Like there's no chance that like if the Chargers are not playing for anything, like DeAndre Carter gets like 8 targets in this game. Like go, reward your player. Like go reward him. Like he gets targets in this game.
His salary on the year is $1.135 million. So that's what a 10% increase.
Is a lot of money for that. yeah. So yeah, I mean, the good thing is this week there's 5 games at 4:00, so you can build lineups, and if you need to adjust things with like Baltimore losing or whatever, Baltimore winning, you can. I mean, if you're playing afternoon only slates, maybe there's edge in seeing how the early games go and attacking the Chargers that way, because they're one of the 5 teams that we have in the afternoon where like early games can kind of decide. I mean, I think they're the only team really. So Denver side, Russ was back last week. Got that one right. I got a lot wrong last week, but I got Russ right. He's 5,400. I mean, I don't expect him to run the ball in 2 times again, but I like the price point. I don't know who I pair him with, like in general. But I mean, I definitely have some interest in Wilson this week. If he plays, I'm assuming that he would play, but if he plays, I have interest.
Yeah, I mean, they have to give the fan base something to hope for here, right? After the year that they've been through. So I think they're somewhat motivated to show up. I don't know. It depends
they need a draft pick to go get a quarterback or something,
Right. And well, they traded their draft picks too. Like Seattle.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Picks. I mean, yeah, they're going to try to win this game.
Yep. I completely agree. I think they're in play. I think if the Chargers are not motivated and they're resting guys, they become very interesting plays. Yep. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the wide receivers. The tight end Akuibunam, we saw get 6 targets last week. He's always been a capable receiver. Not sure exactly. Like Dulcich is clearly better, I think, but Alberto is perfectly capable. 2,900. I like him quite a bit. Judy, I struggle with that ankle. I think they probably just let Judy take it easy in this one. So would be the pair him with, but love Alberto at the tight end. I don't know that I've played a Russ stack all year long, but I might be doing it here in week 18 to close out the year.
Welcome aboard.
I definitely played Russ stacks early in the year and got so frustrated that I gave up.
Yeah, well, welcome aboard. And Judy's back with this team next year. Like, so there's a possibility that Judy even sits this week. I mean, there's no reason.
He's re-injured that ankle like 2 or 3 times now, so I'm very cautious on Judy.
Just really quick, I'm going to look up Cortland Sutton. Is he back too?
I think he signed an extension, if I remember.
Yeah, so he's back till 2020. Yeah, so I mean, I like Sutton in this game. If Judy sits, I mean, I definitely love the tight end call, but if Judy sits, Hinton is out or like not projected to play, so it'd be really interesting, like, you know, around what 3 o'clock, 3:30, who, you know, is kind of going to be inactive and active for this team, because if Hinton sits too, I mean, who knows who we're going to be taking shots on here. Maybe Brandon Johnson, Freddie Swine. I don't know. I like the tight end call though. Like that a lot. Like Sutton. I'm going to play some Russ. It's a cheap stack. It's a really cheap stack. So,
yep.
All right, last game. We knew this one was going to be long. We got the Rams and Seattle Seahawks, 41.5 total. Seattle, 6.5 point favorite. Win and you're in type of game for Seattle. Right? No. They win and Green Bay has to lose still, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, win is the only chance they have a chance to make the playoffs, right? Or no?
Yep.
Yeah, because Detroit or Green Bay, whoever wins that game would get in.
Correct. All right, yes, so they're eliminated with a loss.
Rams side of this one, anything that you like here for the Rams?
Cam Akers. Seattle's rush defense has been bad all year long. They lost their linebacker. It was last week or the week before. Murray, who's one of their better players in the run game, obviously. We've seen Cam Akers kind of take over this role. 19 carries last week, 23 the week before, which is just wild compared to how the season started for him. But Cam Akers is clearly the guy in this backfield. I love him for 6,200 in this matchup. I think the Rams actually have a chance to kind of hang around in this game. And even if they don't, I think Akers is involved. So I like Cam Akers. The receivers are tough for me. I think you just go to Higbee. I'm probably not playing Baker, but you mentioned the incentive for Higbee, 4,400. We've seen him kind of come back to life over the last couple of weeks. Has a little bit of a connection with Baker now. So I like Higbee and I like Akers, but probably not playing Baker stacks, and I can't touch the wide receivers room.
Higbee needs 13 yards for 500 grand.
Okay, so yeah, he's getting that, but if he gets you 14 yards, that doesn't help you much in DFS.
Yeah, I mean, so I kind of like Baker Mayfield this week.
Okay.
Seattle, like, I mean, there's no real incentive for the Rams to win this game or to play this team. I mean, it's a division game, though. So if you have a chance to knock out Seattle, like, you get up for those games. And, like, if you're Baker Mayfield, what a perfect opportunity to be like, hey, I can still do this for next year kind of thing. Whether it be with the Rams, whether it be Stafford coming back or not, who knows? So 5,200, we've seen him already this year, have a game where he could throw a couple touchdowns. Again, ceiling quarterbacks this week, it's tough. It's really tough. It's just a scenario where we might not see a quarterback top 30 if Hurts doesn't play, or Lamar Jackson too. So I like Baker. My favorite pairing with Baker would probably be Higbee. Tight end kind of combo. I think that's where I would lean the most. I mean, Van Jefferson, large field tournaments, he's 39. We have a ton of cheap plays this week. So, I mean, price is not going to matter as much, but with, yeah, I mean, maybe Atwell or Van Jefferson, but I mean, my main target is going to be Higbee. Seattle, you have to win this game. I mean, Geno, you're 6K, you have to win this game. I mean, this is a funnel type of defense. They want you to throw the ball, and I mean, Seattle wants to run the ball, so it's kind of tough. Walker got hurt in this game earlier this year, right? Like he only had like 3 or 4 rushing attempts in this game earlier this year. What are your thoughts here on Seattle?
Yeah, Walker's banged up again too, but man, like you said they want to run the ball. I'm still interested in Walker if he plays. I don't think there's a ton of running backs that are going to get just massive volume. Walker's one of those guys that could. Certainly Najee Harris we talked about. There's a few others, but I like Walker and his price point. I do like Geno Smith and the passing attack as well. Obviously keeping an eye on Tyler Lockett. Not sure if he goes. Not sure that I can trust that he's completely healthy, even if he goes. Like this is a must-win game for them. So more than likely, Lockett's. Yeah, like
losing, you're out. You have to win this game,
right? So Lockett's probably going to do everything he can to get on the field, and for that reason, I'm just going to lean Metcalf. It's always a toss-up between Metcalf and Lockett, but with Lockett dealing with the injury, I think you just go Metcalf here. If Lockett is out there, I am a little concerned. And Fant's questionable too, so he didn't practice on Wednesday. I think Lockett's presence would hurt Fant's role a little bit. So generally, I want to double stack Geno. I know DK Metcalf is going to be a part of that, and then I probably just mix in Lockett, Fant, maybe even Colby Parkinson if Fant is super banged up. We saw him get 7 targets last week. Treadwell, I don't think I can do that. I don't know. It's Metcalf is the clear target here to pair with Geno, and I'm definitely interested. Must-win game, one of the most motivated teams on the entire slate.
We talked about it last week going into that game that, I mean, it was just going to be a really, really tough spot for DK Metcalf. Like the whole Seattle like passing attack in general, and that, you know, I even talked about like playing some Treadwell, hoping that Lockett got kind of shut down on the outside. The Jets corners have just been so good this season. So, I mean, everything kind of worked out how we thought it was going to. It just ended up being the tight ends that scored the touchdowns, and terrible game. I mean, you know, was it Reed and Carter, right? Is that who it is and Gardner? Like the corners for the Jets have just been insane.
Yeah, so, Gardner and Reed.
My only concern about Metcalf in this game is he should get shadowed by Jalen Ramsey. But I mean, Jalen Ramsey shadowed him earlier this season, and Metcalf burned him. So, you know, who knows? Metcalf's a clear option here for me, especially on Geno teams. I mean, I want to see if Fant is out, I'll take some shots on Parkinson. Like he's 2,600. Yep. Like he's way too cheap. They obviously have no problem, you know, throwing him the ball in the red zone. So, pay attention to that. It's huge. It's huge. If Lockett plays, I still have interest in Parkinson if Fant is out. I don't have interest in Lockett if he plays. I just don't think he's 100%. I think the shin thing's a real thing, and I just don't see him being out there enough for me to, you know, get there. He crushed this team earlier this year. I mean, Geno crushed this team earlier this year. Geno's upside is there. Like it, you know, he put up 28 fantasy points against this team earlier this year. So in a must-win game. I mean, yeah. So, all right. Morning grind game. We're going to get out of here real quick. Really, really, really quick, because I totally forgot about this when we were talking about this. If the Giants rest Daniel Jones, do you have any interest in Tyrod Taylor?
What's his price? 5,100. I think I would play Sam Howell first, but yeah, I mean, you have to have some interest. Like if he's playing a full game at 5,100, he's a fairly capable quarterback. So yeah, slight interest.
I think a rushing upside is huge potentially for Tyrod Taylor. Yeah, especially if they sit Barkley too. So I've totally forgot about that. Like just thinking about like through the scenarios of the Giants and stuff when we were talking about it and how, I mean, with the tie, they really can't move. Just throwing it out there, Tyrod Taylor is somewhat interesting to me at 51 because of his rushing ability. He's someone that can break off like a 30-yard touchdown run. So, all right, morning grind game, DraftKings pricing and scoring like always. Last regular season one, we'll do some morning grind game for the first couple rounds of the playoffs too. But last one of the regular season, Keith, I'll let you get going here. Quarterback to throw for 300 plus yards. And this one might actually be tough this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, I really struggled with this one this week. Not a lot of high upside quarterbacks here. So I'm just going to go with a guy that I know is motivated. We just talked about him, Geno Smith against the Rams. I mean, we know that Seattle's trying to win this game. So I will go that route.
Did it last time these two teams played, so easily could do it as well. I'm going to go Kirk Cousins. Chicago their defense is terrible. You might not get Cousins for the whole game, but I mean, they definitely have incentive to win this game, especially like with Philly and San Francisco both playing at 4:00. Minnesota kind of has the potential to control their own destiny. So yeah, I'm gonna go Kirk Cousins. Like I said, we might only see him for 3/4 or even a half, but I'm hoping that it's a banger half. I'm hoping. I mean, there's just no it's tough. It's really tough. I mean, maybe Dak Prescott, but maybe Mike White against the Dolphins, Baker. But yeah, it's really tough for 300 plus yards this week. Next up, number 2 is low-owned running back for a touchdown. We should have no problem trying to find a low-owned running back for a touchdown this week. We do have projected ownership, like first draft up. Not a ton of ownership on running backs this week. Algier is like really, really chalky right now. What do you think here for? Yeah, running. He's at 27% right now. First draft, highest.
Yeah, I originally had looked at the blitz ownership actually. So the guy I had Cam Akers here, but the RG has him at 16%. So I'm going to find a pivot here real quick. I do like Cam Akers. Hopefully he comes in a little bit lower. I don't know that I would play him into like 20% ownership though. Let's see here. Love Najee. He's up around 13%. Give me Zach Moss, 5,200.
Oh, you took my guy.
Love that matchup against Houston, obviously.
Yeah, you took my guy.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a good one to seek it in a touchdown this week, or get in the end zone. I did write down 2 just in case you took my guy. I'm gonna go Dobbins for Baltimore. Very meaningful game for Baltimore. He is someone that has the ability. Yeah, so I'm gonna go him. Quarterback, wide receiver stack for a touchdown this week. Fun stuff.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what this guy can do. I'm gonna go Sam Howell to Terry McLaurin.
All right. I didn't see that one coming. I'm gonna go Ritter to London.
All right, I did not see that one coming.
Yeah, I mean,
no,
yeah.
Like I think you can get weird at quarterback. We've talked about it for the whole 2 hours that we've been talking about this slate. Like it's a weird slate where teams are evaluating young guys, and I think we both just went that route. Like I think they try to get Sam Howell his first NFL touchdown in this game. I think McLaurin is his most talented receiver. I did go back and forth between McLaurin and Dotson. Like just having that connection with his fellow rookie might be a thing. But yeah, I like Howell, and you've talked me into a little Ritter maybe.
For what it's worth, the slate changes a lot if Kansas City somehow loses on Saturday, because Josh Allen would become very, very interesting. So just saying, just throwing that out there. Wide receiver, 8+ targets. Who do you got?
I'm going DJ Moore. He's in the dome. Him and Darnold seem to have a pretty great connection here. talked about that incentive for him as well to get to 1,000 yards. So I think he sees at least 8 targets here.
I am going to go DK Metcalf. If I had to pick someone, it'd be Jefferson. I think he's going to get a gazillion targets in this game, even if it is only a half or 3/4. But yeah, I'm gonna go DK Metcalf. Must-win game for Seattle. Clearly the number one target in that offense. Tight end for a touchdown. Who do you got?
I'm gonna go Albert O here. I think mad about getting sat on the bench all season long. Russell is out to prove something here. Give Denver something to root for next year. Albert O.
Prove that coach wrong. That's what he wants to do. He has nothing to prove more than that coach being gone. I'm going to go Trey McBride, 3,300 Arizona. Clear connection there last week against Atlanta. I'm going to say Trey McBride, someone that I was definitely not on last week at all, and I'm going to be overweight on this week, so probably go for one for like 16 or something. Defense for 10+ points this week. I don't think I'm going to rule out any defense this week. I'll let you pick whoever you want.
All right. I think there are a lot of defenses that could score 10 points this week, honestly. My favorite is Minnesota against Nathan Peterman. The Bears have given up a ton of sacks. Nathan Peterman loves to throw interceptions. Minnesota is my favorite defense of the week.
I like that. I think that's a fantastic call. I'm going to go Houston. I really like the Houston Texans defense this week. 2,700. I'm really quick. I'm just curious. Projected ownership for the Texans. They're actually at 5%. Like, that's not terrible for a defense. Minnesota is the highest projected owned defense. Good job, Keith. Chalky Keith. Just kidding. All right.
Yeah, I don't like playing the highest owned defense. I honestly did not even look at.
It's going to change so much from now until Saturday.
I love your Houston call. I like the other side of that game too. I like Indy quite a bit as well. Like both of these teams, I'm telling you, they're trying to lose.
Third highest owned defense on the slate.
Well, you know.
All right, let's talk some bets. Any money line against the spread bet that is standing out to you
here? Minnesota -7.5 is not enough. Chicago wants to lose. Minnesota wants to get an early lead so that they can rest. I think they're up by 3 scores at halftime.
Yeah, I like that one. I'm going to go Dallas -7. I think that line's a little low. I mean, Dallas definitely playing for something. Washington starting a rookie quarterback. Getting his first NFL start against a really, really tough Dallas defense. So I think Dallas definitely pedal on the gas here, at least until they know like Philly's up by a lot. So I'm going to go Dallas -7 in this one. Any over-unders that you like this week?
I have Houston Indy under 38.5 right now. I mean, we have Davis Mills / Jeff Driscoll versus Sam Ellinger. Like, I don't, and two teams that really want to lose the game. So give me the under in Houston Indy.
Okay, so this one all depends on the Baltimore game. I think Baltimore is going to lose to Cincinnati for what it's worth. So I like the over in the Chargers game if Baltimore loses. I'm putting a asterisk next to it. You're going to have to bet this one probably close to the line. Like, I think you see what's going on in the third quarter of the Cincinnati game, and if this line is still around like 41-ish, if Baltimore's losing in the third quarter and this line's like 41-ish, I really like the over in this game. I think it's going to be a game the Chargers are going to have to play their guys. I think Russell Wilson has something to prove right now. I also like the over in the Seattle game. I'm hoping that Baker can kind of keep up. So I like the over in that game too. So you don't want to asterisk one. Take that one. Player props we're going to take off this week. There's nothing. There's nothing posted anywhere. We checked. We looked. There's nothing posted yet. I think we're going to be waiting and seeing what kind of goes down here. But yeah. What are your final thoughts here on week 18?
Exciting week. We just said a lot of words about a lot of things that could change potentially. So make sure you are monitoring the news. That is our edge this week, is to pay attention to the news, the motivation. You can find these spots of guys that may be stepping into larger roles who teams are hoping to get a look at. Maybe guys that are resting people, things like that. That Charger situation. If Baltimore ends up losing, the Chargers have nothing to play for. Make sure you're pivoting off of situations like that. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City wins. You don't want to really take shots on Buffalo, I don't think. Like, it also, like, I mean, it really depends on a lot of this week, too, depends on what they do with that Buffalo-Cincinnati game. That game has a really large role just in general. Because, I mean, that could be a potential spot where, like, Cincinnati rests guys because they have nothing to play for because they beat Baltimore, or, like, they have the tiebreaker over Baltimore, and, like, we just see. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you really got to pay attention to that news. I think we get that news Friday. I mean, they have to announce that news by the weekend, what they're going to do with that game. So, yeah, pay attention to the news. I mean, gosh, this is just, again, it's a dream spot for AJ Brown. It's a dream spot for Justin Jefferson. If Justin Jefferson can get the minutes, yeah, man, like, pay attention to this one. This week's interesting. That's it. Week 18 in the books. Back tomorrow, NBA. Back next week, maybe a split NFL NBA podcast. Hope everyone has a fantastic week, and we'll see you again tomorrow.